The morning fog clung to Frosthaven like a shroud, heavy and wet, muffling sound and light alike. Rohan walked the ramparts alone, boots crunching on frost-hardened stone, the crystal tucked beneath his cloak. The battlefield of the previous night haunted him. The shattered reaver, the frozen corpses, the awe-filled and terrified faces of his soldiers. Every heartbeat throbbed in time with the pulse of the crystal, a cold echo of Kaelor's laughter still clinging to his mind. Nayland joined him silently, her silver cloak brushing against the battlements, eyes fixed on the horizon. "You look as if you've seen ghosts," she said softly. Her hand hovered near the hilt of her dagger, an instinctive gesture born of years walking alongside men who sought to unravel her secrets. "And I have," Rohan admitted, his voice low. "And I fear they are not entirely gone." He turned toward her, a frost-dusted strand of hair falling over his eyes. "Kaelor's hand is not broken. He has only been pushed back. And the crystal, it feeds him as much as it protects me." Nayland studied him, her expression unreadable. "Then we need knowledge. Allies. Someone who can name the curse, and perhaps unravel it before he binds you completely." Rohan's jaw tightened. "A sorcerer, you mean? One who traffics in the same darkness." His gaze fell on the distant peaks of the Rimewood, white-capped and forbidding. "Do you trust this path? That a man steeped in black arts can help me resist another?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I trust you, and if there is a price to pay, I will pay it at your side." He looked away toward the valley below. The snow lay thick across the countryside, broken only by the scattered remnants of the raiders' advance. Frosthaven had survived, yet the city felt hollow, as if the life had been drained from it. The cheers of the morning could not erase the whispers of doubt that followed him, the fearful eyes of men who no longer knew if their lord was human or something else entirely. Horns sounded from the inner keep, shrill and urgent. Guards ran to their posts, and a messenger appeared, his cloak dusted with frost. He handed Rohan a scroll, sealed with the sigil of the council. Rohan broke the wax with shaking fingers. Inside, the words were precise and cold. "Lord Iceborn, the council has convened. They demand an audience. They seek counsel. They do not trust your judgment. Come prepared for scrutiny and challenge. The North watches. The kingdoms murmur." He crushed the scroll in his hand, the frost from the crystal licking at his palm. The council had not forgiven him for wielding power beyond their comprehension. And Kaelor would exploit this. Every whisper, every glance, every trial could be turned against him. Nayland's hand rested lightly on his arm. "Then, we go prepared. Not just with swords, but with clarity. You must walk into their scrutiny and remain unshaken. Kaelor will try to turn their fear into a blade. Do not let him." Rohan exhaled slowly, the cold air leaving his lungs in a visible cloud. "Unshaken," he repeated, almost a mantra. "But if the crystal burns, if the frost leaps on its own, I cannot promise control." Her silver eyes softened. "Control is not the point. Survival is. Knowledge is. And sometimes, trust." He nodded once, resolute yet uneasy. The city stretched below, silent under the frost. Somewhere in the shadows, the council's emissaries whispered, plotting to contain or condemn him. Somewhere, Kaelor watched, invisible but present, weaving doubt and decay into the fabric of Rohan's life. Rohan stepped back from the edge, gripping the crystal as if to anchor himself. "Then we begin. We go to the council, we face scrutiny, and we find the hermit in the Rimewood. If Kaelor seeks to bind me, I will bind myself first, to knowledge, to strategy, to survival." Nayland followed, her cloak brushing against his shoulder as they moved toward the keep's inner hall. The wind shifted, carrying a whisper that only Rohan seemed to hear, cold and distant. "Every step you take, Iceborn, I am there." He froze, the crystal pulsing faintly at his side, a heartbeat of frost and shadow. Somewhere beyond the city walls, the sorcerer's gaze followed, patient and merciless. And Rohan knew, with the certainty of blood in his veins, that this journey into the council's judgment would be only the first of many trials where his name would be tested, by fear, by doubt, and by the hand of a shadow that never rested. first step into the storm had been taken. The council chamber was a place built for judgment. High stone pillars rose like the trunks of petrified trees, their carved surfaces etched with the scars of centuries of rule. Torches flickered along the walls, but even their fire could not drive out the chill. Rohan walked into the hall beneath the weight of 100 stairs, Aelin a step behind him. Each murmur that rippled through the crowd felt like a dagger aimed at his back. At the far end, upon a dais of black marble, the Council of Frosthaven waited. 7 elders, cloaked in deep blue, their faces half hidden in the shadows of their hoods. In the center sat the High Elder, Lord Sarek, his voice the law, his word the measure by which all others bent. His eyes, pale as ice, locked onto Rohan's, unflinching Rohan Iceborn. Sarek's voice rang out, slow and deliberate. "You return to us victorious, yet tainted." NTHE words drew a low rumble from the chamber. Tainted. The word spread like fire through dry grass. Rohan's jaw tightened. He knew this would come, but hearing it aloud pierced deeper than he expected. "I fought," Rohan said, his voice steady, though his heart thundered in his chest. "I fought with what weapon was placed in my hand. Would you have me stand aside while reavers tore down our gates? Would you have me let your sons and daughters bleed on the snow while I hesitated?" And a murmur of agreement passed through the soldiers in attendance, but the elders remained unmoved. And Sarek leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "We would have you fight as a man of Frosthaven, not as a servant of shadows. The crystal upon your chest, it burns with Kalor's essence. And already whispers spread through the kingdoms that Frosthaven's lord is no longer man, but something half-wraith, half-demon." And THE words struck like hammer blows. Rohan wanted to rip the crystal from his chest, hurl it into the fire, but the thought of releasing it filled him with a terror that rivaled Sarek's accusations. The crystal pulsed, as if aware of his turmoil, cold rippling through his veins. "You fear what you do not understand," Rohan answered, voice firm but edged with fire. "The crystal is no leash. It is a weapon, my weapon, and I will wield it for Frosthaven until the day I fall." NNTHE council stirred, some uneasy, others angered. Sarek's lips curved into the faintest smile, sharp as broken ice. "A weapon, you say? Yet weapons have a way of turning on their masters. Tell me, Rohan, when the whispers in your head grow louder than the voices of your people, will you still call yourself Lord? Or will you kneel as Kalor's thrall?" Rohan's fists clenched. For a moment, the firelight bent strangely around him, as if the frost in his veins was warring with the flame in the torches. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Aelin placed a hand on his arm, grounding him, her silver eyes sharp as steel. "Rohan fights for Frosthaven," she said, her voice clear and ringing. "And I will stake my life on that truth. If you cannot trust him, then trust me. Would I stand beside a traitor to our blood and kin?" Silence fell. The council did not answer, but the weight of her words lingered. Aelin's loyalty was no small matter. Her lineage was tied to the founding of Frosthaven, her word as binding as the oaths of the city's walls. Finally, Sarek leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Very well. If you claim loyalty, prove it. There are whispers of a sorcerer in the Rimewood, one who bends shadow to his will. If you would have us believe the crystal does not control you, then bring this sorcerer forth. Bring him here, bound in chains or dead by your hand." NNTHE chamber erupted into cries and murmurs. The task was madness. The Rimewood was haunted, its name spoken with dread even among hardened warriors. Rohan's blood turned to ice. He had expected judgment, not a quest that reeked of political cunning. Sarek was no fool. Whether Rohan succeeded or failed, the council would have its answer. Either he would prove himself master of the crystal, or he would die in the attempt. Aelin's grip on his arm tightened. She whispered, low enough that only he could hear. "They've set the trap, but if we do not walk into it, they will name you guilty without a trial." Rohan lifted his gaze, meeting Sarek's cold stare. The decision was no decision at all. "And I will go," he said, the words heavy as stone. "And when I return, Frosthaven will know whether its lord stands as man or shadow." NTHE crystal pulsed once more, and in the silence that followed, Rohan thought he heard Kalor's mocking voice dripping with delight. Yes, wolf. Into the Rimewood. Into my waiting arms. The gates of Frosthaven groaned open, with the sound of old iron straining against frost. A crowd had gathered to see their lord depart, though their eyes carried as much suspicion as loyalty. Mothers clutched their children close, warriors bowed stiffly but did not smile, and whispers trailed like smoke through the air. Iceborn cursed Shadow's pawn. The words clung to the wind, carried even to Rohan's ears as he mounted his steed. Nayland rode beside him, her cloak of silvered fur fluttering in the cold. She met the stairs with defiance, her chin raised high, as if daring the people to doubt her faith in him. Behind them, a small retinue of hand-picked soldiers waited, men and women seasoned enough to walk into the Rimewood and return alive. Yet even they exchanged uneasy glances, each one measuring whether this journey was a mission or an exile. "Do you hear them?" Rohan muttered as the crowd's murmur swelled. His voice was low, for Aelin alone. "I hear fear," she replied. "And fear is louder than truth." And He gave a grim nod. The crystal pulsed once beneath his armor, a cold heartbeat against his chest, as if mocking the warmth of his own. The memory of Sarek's voice echoed in his head. "Bring the sorcerer forth, or prove yourself his kin." NNTHE Company rode into the Rimewood as twilight deepened. The forest greeted them with silence too heavy for comfort. Great pines loomed like pillars of some forgotten temple, their branches weighed down with snow. The air here was colder than the open tundra, the kind of cold that sank through skin into bone. Frost clung to every trunk, twisting the wood into grotesque faces that leered from the shadows. A soldier named Taran muttered, "The trees here listen. Best not to speak too much." "Then let them hear us," Aelin said sharply. "We are no thieves creeping in the dark. We are warriors of Frosthaven." Still, her eyes never rested for long. Even she felt the weight of the forest's watch. And as night fell, they made camp beside a frozen stream. A fire was kindled, though its warmth did little against the encroaching chill. The men whispered of the sorcerer, each tale darker than the last. He could summon shadows that strangled a man before his scream left his throat. He could steal names, binding souls to his service. He could wear a dozen faces, slipping among his enemies unseen. Rohan sat apart, staring into the flames. He remembered Kalor's laughter from the council chamber, that mocking voice that had followed him from dream into waking. Was this sorcerer truly Kalor's pawn, or another phantom meant to drive him deeper into the trap? "Your thoughts are louder than the fire," Aelin said, settling beside him. "They've sent us to prove a lie," he answered bitterly. "No man could drag such a sorcerer back in chains. Sarek knows it. He hopes the forest swallows us whole." "Then let us choke the forest first," she said. Her eyes burned with a fierce resolve, though her hand trembled slightly against the hilt of her sword. "You are Rohan Iceborn. Do not forget that." Night branch cracked in the darkness. Every soldier's hand went to steel. Silence fell thick as snowfall. The fire sputtered as if the night itself had drawn in a breath. From beyond the circle of light came a voice, smooth as silk, carrying with it the weight of command. "So, the wolf comes at last, and he brings his pack." NNTHE soldiers rose as one, blades flashing. Shadows stirred at the edge of the trees, coiling like smoke given form. "No." Rohan rose slowly, his hand on his sword, the crystal at his chest burning cold as death. "Show yourself," he demanded, and the shadows obeyed. From the black of the trees, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked, his face hidden behind a mask of carved bone. His presence bent the firelight, warping the air around him. The soldiers flinched, but none dared retreat. "Welcome to the Rimewood, Iceborn," the sorcerer said. His voice was neither loud nor soft, yet it filled the clearing, worming its way into every ear. "You've walked into the heart of your own legend. Let us see if you survive it." NNTHE fire guttered, and the shadows surged. The shadows closed like jaws around the campfire, snuffing its warmth until only embers clung to life. Men cursed and drew blades, their eyes darting wildly as shapes writhed in the dark. Some swore they saw faces among them, pale, contorted, screaming without sound. Rohan's hand tightened on his sword. The crystal beneath his breastplate thrummed, eager like a hound straining at its leash. It drank in the sorcery that seeped through the clearing, recognizing a rival, or perhaps a master. An masked figure stepped closer, boots crunching on frost. His cloak flowed like ink spilled on snow, swallowing the starlight. "How strange," he said, tilting his head as though studying a curiosity. "They call you Iceborn, yet I see no frost clinging to your breath, no crown of winter upon your brow. Tell me, wolf, whose blood sings in your veins? Name yourself." Rohan growled. His soldiers spread, forming a half-circle, though their blades quivered in their grasp. Aelin stood firm at his side, her sword drawn, her eyes fixed on the mask. Sorcerer chuckled. "Names are chains, and I have broken mine long ago. But since you ask, once, long before your fathers were dust, they called me Kael'thar." Name rippled through the soldiers like a gust of icy wind. Some staggered back, crossing themselves. One whispered, "But that's impossible." Rohan's heart clenched. Kael'thar, a name buried in the oldest chronicles, a warlock said to have commanded legions of shadows in the age before Frosthaven was built. A myth to frighten children. And yet here he stood, masked and alive. "You're a ghost, Rohan Spaten, am I?" The sorcerer's head tilted again, bird-like, mocking. "Or are you the ghost? A half-born thing with a shard of another's soul lodged in your chest? Tell me, Iceborn, when you look in the mirror, do you see yourself? Or the one who forged you?" Words struck like a blade. The crystal pulsed hot as if answering the accusation. A hiss rose in Rohan's mind. "He knows. He knows what you are. Burn him. Silence him." Rohan staggered, clutching at his breastplate, but Aelin's hand steadied him. "Don't listen," she hissed. "His power lies in fear. Nothing more." And Kael'thar's masked face turned toward her. Ah, the flame beside the wolf. "Strong, yes. Loyal, perhaps. But you will burn first, girl, when his fire loses its leash." Broke the last thread of restraint. "Enough!" Rohan roared, drawing steel in a flash. He lunged, his blade cutting a gleam through the night. The sorcerer lifted a hand, and the shadows surged like a tidal wave. 9 steel met smoke, and the clash rang like thunder. Shadows writhed around the blade, shrieking, recoiling. Yet each strike bled strength from Rohan, as though every cut was into his own flesh. The crystal flared, trying to drown his pain with fire, to push him into surrender. Soldiers rushed forward with a cry. Taran swung an axe through a shadow, only for it to reform behind him, clawing his back. Another soldier's spear shattered against the sorcerer's cloak, splinters falling uselessly. "Hold formation!" Aelin shouted, striking true. Her blade sang, cutting a line of light through the dark. Shadows recoiled, writhing as though scorched by her defiance. Kael'thar only laughed, his voice echoing from every tree, every corner of the clearing. "Fools! You fight smoke with steel. And you, wolf, you fight blood with fear." Then he raised both hands, and the forest itself groaned. Roots burst from the frozen ground, coiling like serpents. Trees bent low, their limbs writhing into claws. Campfire died with a hiss. Darkness swallowed them whole, and in that void Rohan felt the crystal seize him, pulling his will into its depths. "Choose," it whispered. "Yield, and I will give you power to match his. Resist, and all you love will be devoured." The void pressed on every side, thick as tar, suffocating. Shadows tore into the soldiers, their screams muffled as if from underwater. Steel rang and splintered, but every stroke seemed swallowed whole. Rohan's breath came ragged, his vision flashing red with each throb of the crystal. Its voice surged in him, louder now, demanding, "Let go. Become flame. Burn shadow with fire. You are nothing without me." Staggered, sword slipping from his fingers, knees striking the frozen earth. Aelin's voice cut through the chaos like a bell. "Rohan! Stand! They need you!" She slashed through a shadow that lunged for him, sparks of silver fire trailing her blade, but she was tiring. Her stance faltering, NNTHE crystal's fire surged, eager to pour into her weakness, to consume. She is slowing. Save her. Feed me, and I will save her. No, Rohan whispered, clutching at his chest as if he could rip the shard free. His veins burned. His heart pounded like a drum. He remembered the ruin of his father, the blackened halls, the screams of innocence. He had sworn never to be that monster, never to let the shard win. N.K. Elthar loomed above them, his cloak a writhing ocean of smoke. "I see it," the sorcerer crooned, his voice reverberating like the toll of a funeral bell. "The shard writhes in you, begging. You are its vessel, Wolf. You are mine." Something snapped inside Rohan. He rose with a ragged cry, seizing his sword once more. "I am not yours," NNTHE crystal answered, a flood of white fire bursting from his chest. It tore through the void like dawn breaking, scattering shadows to shrieking tatters. The soldiers cried out, shielding their eyes from the blaze. For a heartbeat, the clearing glowed like midday. NNTHE shadows shrank back. Trees groaned as frost and flame clashed across their bark. NNBUT Kalthar did not flinch. He raised a hand, catching the light in his palm as though holding the sun itself. "Yes," he whispered, "that is the fire I forged." NTHE blaze faltered. Rohan's strength bled with every heartbeat, the shard draining him as quickly as it gave. His legs shook. His breath came ragged, and Elin grasped his shoulder, steadying him. "Rohan, enough. Don't let it take you." NBUT. The warlock's laughter drowned her. "You think you wield it?" "No, Wolf. It wields you. That crystal is no gift. It is a leash, forged by my hand, hammered in the blood of kings. Even now, it pulls you toward me." NNTHE fire inside Rohan twisted, flared hotter, almost alive. His own voice echoed with the shards as he shouted, "Lies!" But the resonance was wrong, his tone layered with something, not his own. Soldiers glanced at him with fear in their eyes. NNTHE shard flared again, sending a whip of fire lashing toward Kalthar. The warlock caught it mid-air and crushed it in his fist. Smoke curled from his palm. "Do you see?" Kalthar's voice was soft now, almost tender. "The more you fight it, the deeper its claws sink. But yield, yield, and I will make you more than wolf. I will make you Reaver, Kingbreaker, Destroyer of Thrones." Rohan's body shook with the effort to resist. The shard's whispers screamed in his skull. "Yes, yield. Become the flame. Burn them all. Then none can hurt you again." NNHE saw his soldiers faltering, Aelin bleeding from a cut across her brow, Tyver down on one knee. Every breath of hesitation cost them their lives. With a hoarse cry, Rohan drove his sword into the frozen earth, the shard blazing through him. Flame erupted outward, a ring of white fire that flung shadows back in shrieking waves. NTHE clearing blazed, but Rohan's vision swam, his strength draining into the shard's hungry maw. And when the fire cleared, Kalthar still stood, untouched, smiling behind the mask. "You see now, Wolf?" His voice was a whisper of triumph. "Your fire is mine to command." The flames guttered into embers, leaving smoke curling in the air like black silk. Rohan's chest heaved, each breath ragged, his body trembling as if hollowed out. The shard inside him pulsed faintly, hungering for more, unsated by the torrent it had just unleashed. Across the clearing, Kalthar stood untouched. His cloak of shadows rippled lazily, his mask gleaming with cold amusement. He raised his hand, and the cries of the wounded dimmed as though swallowed by silence itself. "Behold your champion," the sorcerer said, his voice carrying like thunder over the field. "See how the fire bends him, see how it answers me." Murmurs broke among the northern ranks. Men looked at Rohan not with reverence, but with fear. Some backed away as though he were no less monstrous than the shadows themselves. "He's cursed," one soldier whispered, clutching his bleeding arm. "He'll turn on us next." Another spat. "You saw his eyes, burning like the reavers. Inthe words cut deeper than steel. Rohan's jaw clenched. He wanted to shout, to deny it, but the shard thrummed in his veins, betraying him with every beat. Caldris stepped forward, bow in hand, his expression twisted with turmoil. "I warned you," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "The shard consumes him. He's one breath away from becoming what we fight." Silence. Aelin snapped, planting herself between Rohan and the captain's drawn bow. Her sword glimmered faintly in the firelight, though her hand shook from exhaustion. "If you lose that arrow, Caldris, you'll doom us all. He is still Rohan, still our wolf." "Is he?" Caldris's voice cracked, but his aim held steady. "Look at him, Aelin. That's not the man we followed. That's a vessel, and the vessel is cracking." Nthe soldiers shifted uneasily, torn between the fire that had saved them moments ago and the terror of what it might yet become. Nankelthar's laughter slithered through their doubt, smooth and poisonous. "Yes, Licento your fear. You know the truth when you hear it. The wolf is not your savior. He is the doom you carry within your walls. Slay him now, and perhaps you will live to see dawn." "Don't listen!" Tyver roared, dragging himself to his feet despite the blood that soaked his side. His voice, rough as gravel, rang with iron. "I've bled beside him. I'd follow him into the abyss itself. Who else among you held that monster back? Who else would dare?" Nbut Kelthar pressed on, ignoring the night. "You've seen what happens when men cling to cursed fire. His father burned kingdoms to ash, and now the son will finish what he began." Ninwohan's breath faltered. The shard pulsed in answer to those words, memories of his father's ruin blazing behind his eyes. Smoke, screams, charred bones, NNFOR a heartbeat. He wondered if Kelthar was right. NNTHE bowstring creaked. Caldris's hands trembled, sweat running down his brow. His eyes locked on Rohan's chest, the faint glow of the shard beneath his skin. "If I don't, we'll all pay the price," he whispered. Nellen's voice was low, venomous. "If you lose that arrow, Captain, you will pay it first." An Nthe air hung taut as a drawn blade. One heartbeat, then another. Then Kelthar raised his staff, shadows writhing around him. "Why waste time with doubt?" he purred. "Let me decide for you." And Nthe ground split open at his feet, and from the fissure clawed another shadow beast, smaller than the reaver, but no less deadly. It shrieked, black talons flashing as it lunged toward the northern ranks. Panic erupted. Soldiers broke formation. Nohan staggered forward, gripping his sword once more. He forced the shard's fire down, fighting its hunger. He would not unleash it again, not unless he chose. Nhe met Kelthar's gaze across the smoke. "You will not break me," he rasped. Nthe warlock's smile curved behind the mask. "Not yet." And as the beast tore into the line, Caldris's bowstring twanged. The arrow hissed through the smoke like a serpent. Time slowed, the chaos of men screaming, steel clashing, and the beast's shriek muffled beneath the pounding of Rohan's heart, and Nhe turned just enough. The shaft struck high, piercing his shoulder rather than the glowing shard beneath his ribs. Pain lanced through him, hot and searing, forcing a cry from his throat. He staggered, knees buckling, sword slipping from his grasp, and Rohan! Aelin lunged to his side, catching him before he fell. Her eyes blazed at Caldris. "You damned fool!" Nthe captain lowered his bow, face pale, lips trembling. "I aimed for his heart. Gods forgive me. I missed." There was no time for argument. The shadow beast crashed into the northern ranks, scattering men like kindling. Its claws tore through shields, its maw dripping black fire. Panic spread as soldiers broke and fled, their cries echoing off the stone. Tyver, bleeding, but unbowed, threw himself into the monster's path with a roar. His axe sank into its hide, spraying black ichor that hissed as it hit the earth. "Hold the line, cowards!" he bellowed. "Stand or die running." Some rallied to his cry, driving spears into the beast's flanks. Others stumbled back, fear outweighing courage. Rohan forced himself upright, blood soaking his tunic, his breath shallow. The shard pulsed violently now, feeding off the wound, desperate to surge free. His vision blurred with heat. Nkella's laughter echoed above it all, his voice a silken blade. "See how easily your faith splinters? Your wolf is hunted by his own, his allies broken by fear. Soon he will be mine." Non gritted his teeth, forcing himself not to listen. Aylin's hands pressed against his wound, her voice fierce, urgent. "Stay with me. Don't let it take you. You hear me? Don't." "But," the shard whispered too, sweet and insidious. "Let me loose, and the beast will fall. Let me burn, and none will dare stand against you." Rohan closed his eyes, trembling. He saw his father's face. Not the monster of memory, but a weary man in the last moment before ruin. He had seen that same temptation, that same fire. And he had fallen. "I won't." Rohan rasped through gritted teeth. "I won't be him." He wrenched the arrow free with a cry, blood spurting from the wound. The shard flared, but he slammed his will against it, forcing the fire inward, holding it like a chained wolf straining to bite. Bent, retrieving his fallen sword, though his hand shook. His gaze locked on the beast thrashing in the line, scattering his men. "Rohan," Aylin began, but he cut her off with a look. "If I fall, keep them standing," he said, and then he charged. Beast turned, jaws wide, shadows writhing around its bulk. Rohan ducked beneath a sweeping claw, rolled across the blood-slick ground, and drove his blade up into its throat. Black fire gushed, burning his skin where it splattered, but he held on, shoving the steel deeper, and the monster shrieked, thrashing violently. Men shouted, surging forward with spears, driving them into its ribs. Tyver's axe hacked through its skull, splitting shadow like rotten wood. With one last howl, the creature collapsed, crumbling into smoke and ash. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of dying flames and the groans of the wounded. Rohan stood swaying, blood dripping from his wounds, his sword blackened by shadow ichor. His vision dimmed, but he stayed upright, glaring through the smoke at Kael'thar. The sorcerer tilted his head, almost admiring. "Defiance, how charming. But tell me, wolf, how many more wounds can you take before the fire inside devours you whole?" And as the smoke cleared, more fissures split the earth behind him. From them, claws began to emerge. The ground shook again, rumbling like a giant's heartbeat. Cracks split the frozen earth, widening with a sound like shattering bone. From the fissures, more shadow creatures clawed their way up. Twisted forms, some with wolfish heads, others bearing wings of smoke, all stinking of rot and burning pitch. Soldiers, faces went pale. Some backed away, weapons trembling in their hands. "Not more, gods, not more," one man gasped. Rohan forced his weary body upright, leaning heavily on his sword. His shoulder throbbed, his vision swam, but he stood, because if he fell now, they would all fall. "Stand your ground," Tyver bellowed, his axe dripping shadow ichor. His voice cracked with exhaustion, yet carried the weight of defiance. "If they rise from the pits, we'll send them back to hell." The men hesitated. Fear gnawed at their courage, and Kael'thar's laughter rolled over them like thunder. "How easily men crumble when the dark rises," the sorcerer murmured, his tone cruelly amused. "One beast you may slay, two, perhaps. But a horde? No army holds against the endless night." Naelin's eyes blazed. She stepped forward, silver fire rippling across her blade. "Then let the night learn fear." Struck the first of the new beasts as it lunged, cleaving its skull in a burst of pale flame. Smoke shrieked as it scattered, but another claw slashed at her. Rohan blocked, sparks bursting where steel met shadow. The effort nearly drove him to his knees, but he held. NNTHE shard burned inside him, hungry. Unleash me. Burn them all in one breath. Why bleed when you could reign? Rohan clenched his teeth. Not yours, he growled aloud, forcing the whisper back. NNPUT his men heard, and their eyes flicked to him with doubt. Was their commander speaking to himself or to something darker? NNK Elthar seized the moment. His voice boomed across the battlefield, velvet and venom. See how your wolf fights not only shadows but himself. His fire is not your salvation. It is the flame that will consume you all. He is a pyre waiting to ignite. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. Doubt, fear. Caldris, the captain who had loosed the arrow, lowered his bow, shame and uncertainty warring in his eyes. Rohan felt the weight of their stares, of their wavering faith. He wanted to scream, to tear the shard from his chest and cast it into the abyss. But the fire throbbed stronger with every heartbeat, alive and waiting. NNTHE beasts lunged together, a tide of claws and smoke. Tyver roared, meeting them with his axe. Men rallied, slamming shields and spears forward. The clash was thunderous, a storm of steel and shrieks. Rohan forced himself into the fray, every step agony. He cut through one beast, then another, his blade glowing faintly with the shard's heat. Aelin fought at his side, swift as a hawk, her silver flame searing shadows to ash. Yet for each monster slain, 2 more clawed their way free. The ground seemed endless, an open wound spilling darkness. NK Elthar raised his arms, cloak billowing like wings of night. Kneel, wolf, and I will end their suffering. Yield the shard, and I will grant them peace. NTHE soldiers faltered again. One dropped his spear and fell to his knees, sobbing. Another staggered back, muttering prayers to deaf gods. Rohan's fury boiled, but so did his despair. He saw it plain. The sorcerer didn't need to kill them. He only needed to break their will. NNTHE shard whispered again, louder, almost triumphant. You cannot hold them, but I can. Let me blaze, let me rule, let me make them bow. NNHI's vision blurred white. For a heartbeat, he nearly surrendered. Then Aelin's hand gripped his arm, grounding him. Her voice was raw, but steady. They're looking to you, Rohan. Not to him. Not to the fire. To you. And in that fragile instant, he knew. His choice would either bind them together or shatter them forever. The battlefield trembled under Kael'thar's hand. The air itself grew heavy, thick with the weight of unseen chains. The sorcerer's eyes burned brighter than the fires guttering along the ruined walls, and his lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. You think to stand against me with steel and stubbornness? His voice rolled like a tide, each word echoing as if whispered from every shadow. Then behold the shape of despair. NHE slammed his staff into the frozen earth. Cracks spiderwebbed outward, glowing with sickly green light. From the yawning chasm rose a shape larger than any beast they had yet faced. A towering colossus of shadow and smoke, its limbs twisted like broken trees, its head crowned with antlers of flame. Its roar shook the stones beneath their feet, and men clutched their ears in horror. NTHE monstrous thing loomed over the walls of Frosthaven, blotting out the moon. No. Aelin whispered, her knuckles whitening around her blade. That's no creature. That's a memory given form. And she was right. In its burning eyes, Rohan saw not a monster, but the face of his father, cruel and broken, a tyrant lost to madness. His father's voice seemed to ripple from its maw and son. Join me. Rohan staggered back, bile rising in his throat. His wound flared, the shard thrumming as if in recognition. The fire inside him wanted this. It wanted to merge, to become one with the abomination. Men fell to their knees. Some screamed. Others threw down their arms. Tyver alone stood firm, axe in hand, his chest heaving. Damn you! He roared at the sorcerer. You mock the dead, you coward! You twist his memory to break the boy. Then Elthar only laughed. I need not twist what was true. The wolf's blood runs dark. His father proved it. And now he will prove it again. NTHE monstrous shadow beast lumbered forward, claws crashing down on the shield line. Wood splintered. Men were hurled aside like toys. Screams rose, cut short by crushing blows. Rohan's breath came ragged. His sword felt like a twig in his hand, useless against something born of his own bloodline's curse. The shard burned brighter, pleading, demanding. Together, we can feel him. Together, we can end this. Just let me free. NNHI's knees buckled. The voice inside him and the voice of the beast outside merged into one, a chorus of his father's memory. Yield, son. Burn the world with me. Nen, Rohan. Ellen's voice tore through the fog, but she sounded far away. He felt her hand, but it could not anchor him this time. The pull was too strong. NNHI's vision clouded white. He saw himself standing alone amid ash, his men gone, Aelin gone, only fire and silence. And in that silence, peace, no doubts, no fear, only power. NNHE wanted it. God help him, he wanted it. Then, through the roar of the shard and the beast, came another voice. Rough, angry, human. You listen to me, boy, he bellowed, slamming his axe into the beast's leg, black smoke erupting. You're no one's son but your own. Not his. Not Kelthar's. Not anyone's. You're Rohan Frostborn, and if you fall now, then every man here dies with you. NTHE words cut like steel. Not polished, not gentle, but true. Rohan blinked. His grip tightened on his sword. His chest heaved. I am not him, he rasped, forcing the words past blood and fire. An NTHE beast raised its claw, bringing it down to crush Tyver where he stood. Rohan moved without thought, driven not by the shard, but by something older, fiercer. He hurled himself forward, blade raised, fire and steel blazing as one. Steel met shadow. Fire met flame. NNTHE world exploded in light. Light ripped through the battlefield, searing, blinding, alive. For an instant, the great shadow beast faltered, its antlered crown of flame flickering as though a storm wind had caught it. Men shielded their eyes, some falling to their knees, convinced the gods themselves had descended. Rohan drove his blade upward with every ounce of strength left in him. The steel glowed white-hot, wreathed in both his own fire and the shard's unnatural blaze. He was no longer only a man swinging a sword. He was storm, he was fury, he was defiance made flesh. NNTHE beast howled, its voice both monstrous and heartbreakingly human. For Rohan heard it again, his father's voice, broken with rage and sorrow. Why deny what you are? Why fight what is in your blood? Rohan's vision, blurred with tears he hadn't known were there. Because I am not you, he hissed, forcing the blade deeper into the creature's chest. And I never will be. NTHE beast staggered, claws thrashing wildly, toppling towers of ice and stone. Soldiers screamed and scattered as rubble rained down. Tyver rolled aside, cursing, bloodied, but laughing. That's it, boy. Drive it home. Nellen was at Rohan's side now, her hands steadying his, as together they pushed the sword deeper into the abomination's chest. You're not alone, she whispered, voice fierce. Not now. Not ever. An NTHE shard inside him writhed, its voice screaming for release, promising untold power if he would only let go. For a heartbeat, he felt himself slipping, the fire rising too fast, too wild, ready to consume all NNBUT he held. Gods he held. With a final roar, Rohan twisted the blade, and the beast erupted in a storm of shadow and flame. Black ichor rained down, sizzling as it struck stone. The colossal form cracked apart, fragments dissolving into smoke until nothing remained but cinders carried on the wind. Silence fell. True silence, the kind that follows a storm. Men lowered their weapons, staring in disbelief. Some wept openly, others muttered prayers. Tyver dropped to one knee, axe planted in the dirt, chest heaving. By the gods, he muttered, shaking his head. The boy did it. Nbut Kelthar did not weep, nor kneel. From his perch of broken stone, the sorcerer watched with cold detachment, his smile faint, unreadable. "Impressive," he said softly, though his voice carried across the field like smoke. "Very impressive, wolf." Rohan, half collapsed against Aelin, raised his bloodied sword with trembling hands, pointing it at the sorcerer. "This ends tonight." N.K. Elthar chuckled, a sound that turned the blood cold. "Ends? No, my wolf. Tonight is but the first verse of your song. You think yourself free of me, but the shard burns brighter than ever, and when it consumes you, you will beg for the chains you now resist." NHI's cloak of shadows swirled, and with a sweep of his staff, he vanished into smoke, leaving only the echo of his laughter behind. NTHE soldiers erupted in cheers, though the sound was ragged, weary. They had survived, but at what cost? The field was littered with bodies. Fires still burned along the walls. And Rohan, their wolf, their hope, swayed on his feet, pale as ash, the wound in his shoulder seeping steadily. Nylin tightened her grip on him, her voice low so only he heard. "You can't keep this pace. The shard's tearing you apart." Rohan's gaze lingered on the place Kalthar had stood, his jaw clenched, eyes burning with both fury and fear. "Then we'll find a way to tear it out," he said, though his voice shook. "Before it takes me." Above them, the sky was bruised and heavy with clouds, the first flakes of snow drifting down. Winter had claimed the field, but no warmth came with its touch. NNTHE Wolf had won the night, but the shadow was far from gone.